I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the reason we're here today is because that is the closest thing to each of our hearts. It's the most dear and precious thing to each of us, that we can worship God not just in our churches on Sunday, but with our lives every day.
It's great being here with you today. I see the signs out there. The red signs say Obama's HHS Mandate, stop. I think on the other side, or the blue signs say stand up for religious freedom. Did you ever stop to think, and just pause for a moment and think, we are Americans. We believe in freedom and liberty. The word mandate means just the opposite, because you are forcing somebody to do something and thereby taking away somebody's religious freedom. You can't have mandate and freedom go together in that sense. Last weekend I was in Washington, D.C. with my son, visiting my son, and we were driving around and we drove by the Jefferson Memorial, and I was glad to see the doctor quote from our third president, Thomas Jefferson. And in the Jefferson Memorial, around the top, Jefferson has these quotes: "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." Well, let's see. When you talk about mandate, you're talking about tyranny. And when you talk about Jefferson, you talk about the Declaration of Independence. And also there, it does quote the Jefferson's great words in the Declaration of Independence, where we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, notice what Jefferson said. He said, we are endowed by our Creator. Jefferson and the founders believed in the Creator. People of faith know from whence they come. And people of faith have an inherent aversion then to know that when God created life, that when you are doing something to prevent life or to destroy human life, that is against God's plan and God's command. The mandate. Another quote from Jefferson, in that same great memorial, Almighty God hath created the mind free. All attempts to influence it by temporal punishments or burdens are a departure from the plan of the holy author of our religion. That's Thomas Jefferson. And what's he saying? Is he saying, when you depart from the plans that we have in America, where we can follow God, and you are taking a person's religious freedoms, and you are either putting punishments or burdens on that, that's a departure from God's holy plan for this nation. And let me tell you, we take a look at this great founder and the other founders, and as they went and as they wrote not just the Declaration of Independence, but also the Constitution, and you stop and you realize that our president today makes the bold claim that he was a constitutional law professor in Chicago. Remember that? Well, it might do well if he kept in mind what the founders were thinking when they wrote the Constitution. Now, can you really blame Congress, though, for the law that was passed? After all, they had to pass that law so quickly that they did not have time to read it. Remember that? Do you also remember that we had a congressman from Michigan when that law was passed that he was told by the president that this is not going to force abortions? Congressman Bart Stupak from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Do you think that there is a slight dichotomy here in what's going on what people were told? Weren't we also told that we passed this law that more people would have more affordable health insurance? How come it is then that when you have people of faith owning a business or people of faith wanting to buy insurance, that all of a sudden they say we can't give insurance under those conditions? If the Catholic Church and other Christian organizations and other faith-based organizations cannot be offering insurance anymore, isn't that taking away their health care insurance? Isn't that going against what we were told 2 years ago? I'm very pleased to be working for an Attorney General that understands these issues. And about 2 years ago, or a year ago, when I first came on, we had a situation that came to us, and I wanted to just thank the bishop, the doctor, the newspaper columnist, and the government teacher here for the words that they spoke, because we are in a fight today for religious freedom. Make no mistake about that. A year ago, the Attorney General's office was approached by a group of attorneys that were representing a young lady from Eastern Michigan University who had gotten very high grades in her counseling classes, graduate classes, and then she was kicked out because of her religious beliefs. The federal judge at first heard it, then kicked her out of court. It was appealed to the Court of Appeals in Cincinnati. These attorneys came to the Attorney General and said, will you please file an amicus brief and help us out in the Court of Appeals so that we can at least have our case heard at the district court level. The Attorney General, without hesitation, said, well, this is the right thing to do, isn't it? And I said, oh yeah, this is absolutely the right thing to do. The Attorney General filed an amicus brief in the Court of Appeals in Cincinnati, and a few months later, the Court of Appeals reversed the district court judge and said this lady deserves a day in court so that she can show whether or not she has been discriminated against by Eastern Michigan University because of her religious beliefs. Your religious freedom is in the very First Amendment, and it's the very first part of that First Amendment. That's the type of emphasis that our founding fathers put upon religious freedom and the freedom of conscience. I want to finish by reading this statement from the Attorney General, who wishes he could be here with you today. He says, I write to stand up in support of your efforts on behalf of religious liberty in the response to the mandate that is being imposed by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. This is a defining moment in our country. There is an increasing effort to force Americans with religious convictions out of the public square so that they may only act on their beliefs in private. This is not the nature of faith, and that is not what our Constitution requires. At issue here, the mandate will force all employers to underwrite the cost of certain services, including abortion-inducing drugs, regardless of whether employers have moral or religious objections to those services. As you know, there are universities and other religious organizations that will discontinue providing insurance to its employees rather than comply with this unprecedented intrusion into the liberty of Americans. And as an aside, I just want to say thank you to the Catholic bishops and the other Catholic organizations who have said enough is enough. I'm not a Catholic, I'm Baptist, but thank you very much. The Attorney General goes on and says, I have joined with 6 other attorneys general and filed suit to challenge the mandate in federal court in defense of religious liberty, and have pledged to support the Michigan Catholic Conference as well as the Catholic College, Belmont Abbey, in their suits against the Department of Health and Human Services. This is a time to stand up and be counted. Religious freedom is the cornerstone of our republic. It is precious. It must be defended. I stand with you. May God bless you. The Attorney General of the great state of Michigan, Bill Schuette.
We invite you to use your voices now. Let's be heard.